Hey guys, it's Q&A time on June 3rd, 2018. This is, let's see, I'm not even sure when the thread was posted. It says 3 days ago. Okay, so it was from this week. It was contest prep Q&A. Did this one again just because it is that time of year. A lot of people in prep. Heavy show season, so some of the questions aren't necessarily directly prep related. I think some people just see Q&A and ask a question and don't even read the topic, which is okay, I guess. So I will go ahead and get into them. We'll go to Instagram first. All right. How much of a priority should insulin sensitivity and general blood glucose management be in the deep stages of a prep? Well, in all reality, your insulin sensitivity should be pretty good at this point. You shouldn't really need to manage it in the sense that, you're worried about you're worried about your blood glucose being too high. There's no reason that it should be deep in prep. Even people that are using maybe exogenous growth hormone or something, unless it's a lot, they really shouldn't, you really shouldn't have any issues with blood glucose at this point. Some people, if anything, are getting low blood glucose. So, that's a different issue. But, you could be managing it or tracking it in the sense that you want to use it for a loading strategy, pre-show, getting an idea of what your actual baseline is, and then how the carbohydrates affect you, how the extra calories affect you, and then you can utilize it in that way. But as far as actually worrying about your insulin sensitivity, I mean, most people, non-diabetic people, there's absolutely no reason really that you would be having high blood glucose. The one stipulation of that might be someone that's just really chronically stressed. So you're having extra like hepatic glucose output, or just extra glucose output from all the stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol. That can happen. Most people are at this point in prep, they're using stimulants and all that stuff anyhow, and their body is systemically stressed. But even then, I just rarely see blood glucose being an issue. So if it is, then I would probably look at the stress component first and foremost. Would probably be what, would be my main concern. That's typically what I would, what I see as the issue if the sugars are out of whack. Okay, next one. Talk about how you motivate clients who may lose self-confidence mid-prep or express thoughts of bailing out despite a successful prep so far. How do you save clients like that and get them back on track? Or should a coach just say okay and let them go? Well, I think that's normal at a point. Even people that have competed multiple times, I think that there's always that point in prep, or maybe multiple points in prep, where you have a little bit of doubt. You know what I mean? You think I'm behind, even though maybe you're way ahead, but you still think, yeah, I'm a little behind. I think it's normal. Like I said, and if someone's working with a coach, then they need to trust their coach. Obviously, trust their coach's judgment at that point. I've definitely had this happen with people. If it's just it's just a confidence thing. It's not it's not a financial thing. It's not a health thing. It's nothing other than just loss of self-confidence. I just remind them that it is normal. I use myself as an example. I said I've prepped for tons of shows, and I get it every prep. There's a point where I'm like, man, I'm just not sure if I'm gonna be on point, or am I gonna be better than the last time, which is obviously part of the goal. So I just remind them that it's normal, even with seasoned competitors. You know what I mean? And if that typically is enough, enough to show them, okay, well, and I let them know, hey, just trust me. That's why you pay me. So if they're worried that they're behind, maybe just stop looking at themselves in the mirror. Stop worrying about everything. Snap your photos, send them to me. Get away from the mirror for a bit. Let me worry about it. don't worry about those variables, because that's, again, why I'm here, or why you're there, or whoever. So that's, those are the main things that I'm going to tell them. And then maybe like I said, give examples, whether it's using yourself or other clients, or you, I hate to compare conditioning. Like, I hate to say, oh, look, you're just as lean as so-and-so, and they did good at their show, and they were on track. But I don't really like to use that, because everyone's different in that regard. But examples are great. Context is great. Most people, if you can just get them to stop and detach that emotion for a little bit, then they're fine. But is there a point where you should let them go? Yeah, because this isn't for everyone. It's not. You have to love what you're doing. Especially for some people in prep, where they're getting into some really grueling stuff. Why do that if you don't have passion for the sport, or don't really want that end result? It's not like I wouldn't sit here and say, oh, you're weak, or your willpower sucks, or whatever, because you don't want to do it. I'm like, okay, you don't want to do it. Why would you subject yourself to that if it's not something you're that passionate about? Because they get that motivation at first, and then it kind of dies down, and they come to the realization, wow, this is really hard. Just stay in shape, get better, build muscle, whatever. Reevaluate your goals outside of a prep. This doesn't mean I have to stop coaching them. It doesn't mean that they're any lesser of a person, that anyone should really look down on them. Could care less if anyone competes or not. So just kind of my take on it. Best thing to do to stimulate the activation of satellite cells for maximal increase in lean muscle mass. Well, weight training. Weight training is the best thing to do to activate satellite cells. In fact, sometimes I browse questions before I answer them. I just happened to see this one, luckily, so I pulled up a real quick little excerpt here, just so you can hear what I'm talking about. This isn't something I'm necessarily going to focus on. Not specific things in the plan, especially for a natural athlete, that I'm going to really worry about. So, just in recap, this is actually a current literature on the topic, because there has been some studies. I should clarify, there has been some research on the topic that showed that they were extremely important, or that you actually don't need them for hypertrophy, or that you do. And so the research has changed a little bit. This is pretty current. I think it's 2017. So, yeah. All right, so satellite cells are the most abundant skeletal muscle stem cell. They are widely recognized for their contributions to maintenance of muscle mass, regeneration, and hypertrophy during the human lifespan. These cells are good candidates for cell therapy due to their self-renewal capabilities and presence in an undifferentiated form. Presently, a significant gap exists between our knowledge of SC's behavior and their application as a means for human skeletal muscle tissue repair and regeneration. So this is where I was talking about the research was kind of conflicting. Both physiologically and pathological stimuli potential affect SC's activation, proliferation, and terminal differentiation. That's a mouthful. The former category being the focus of this article. Activation of SCs occurs following exercise, post-training micro-injuries, and electrical stimulation. So yeah, training's the best way. Micro traumas, you're breaking down the tissue. Satellite cells are activated at that point. So exercise is a potent and natural stimulus, is at the center of numerous studies on SC activation in relevant fields. According to research, different exercise modalities end with various effects. The review article attempts to picture the state of art of the SC lifespan and their engagement in regeneration, hypertrophy, and exercise. And if anyone wants, I can post this link. Just mention it in the comments of my video. But yeah, exercise, heavy resistance training that really breaks down the tissue. That's what you want. That's going to be pretty much maximal activation of those satellite cells. So Okay. Once you're in off season, does it matter when you do cardio? 11 months since I saw stage last, fasted with yohimbine plus caffeine or pre-post workout with subs. I know yohimbine can help mobilize fats, but does it make a difference in the off season? 2-a-days suck. I'm not sure what the last part is about the 2-a-days, but well, first off, I wouldn't use yohimbine and caffeine in a surplus if you're doing cardio. I mean, you could. I just wouldn't worry. I just wouldn't add that extra sympathetic nervous system activation and wear out your nervous system any more than it needs to be. I mean, fat burning is not your goal at that point. I don't know how much cardio you're doing. If you're doing excessive cardio, really, I mean, I don't think that that's necessary anyhow. If it's from just a point of lung capacity, you want to have that enough, be in good enough shape to get through your workouts, then okay. But really, I definitely wouldn't be using yohimbine and caffeine, and I would be minimizing cardio outside of select situations for most people. I do have some people that do cardio in the off season, some that don't do any at all, and some that do sometimes, and then not some other times. Just depends on the situation. And I not randomly, but I added in periodically in stints where we need it for certain effects. But with that said, I really wouldn't worry about mobilizing fatty acids and things of that nature unless you're doing like occasional fasting protocols. Maybe someone could utilize it, but again, it's extended fasting window, just like people might utilize a growth hormone in there or something for the FFA mobilization. But again, I'm not really going to have anyone use yohimbine and caffeine if their goal is muscle hypertrophy. So, and then timing, no, not really, unless again it's the fasting situation, like I said. But no, I mean, it's going to burn the calories regardless. At the end of the day, whether you do it now or noon or 2 or whatever. So, let's run over to Facebook real quick. All right. Okay. Post show. How do you set people up psychologically not to overeat to where it'd be detrimental? Well, this is something that people tend to learn the hard way, honestly. I've had a lot of novice competitors that I really drill at home. I'm like, you need to take this post-show period seriously, because if people get through that prep and the end of prep and stuff, and they're like, well, I didn't binge in my prep and I didn't cheat in my prep or whatever, like, why would I cheat post-show when I'm adding calories in? It's gonna be super easy. Normally it's the opposite. Normally people don't even have the issues in their prep, and it's all post-show. It's when all the problems begin. So I reiterate how important it is. I said it's not a magical window, but it is extremely important in the sense that you can really make or break yourself. You're setting yourself up for a very good off season, or a really bad one, because I mean, a lot of people, they just end up 6 weeks in and they've lost all their insulin sensitivity. They've gained back almost all their fat. Haven't really recovered stress-wise. They're stressed out. Their hormone profile still sucks. They've done nothing but backpedal. So, I mean, I'll kind of over-exaggerate and I let people know. It's like, hey, if they don't take it seriously, if there's someone that's not taking it seriously, I give them examples. I've had people that they didn't stay on with me post-show. Maybe it was their first show. I told them how important it was and what we needed to do. We needed to be very careful. We needed to do all of these XYZ things, and they decided that they weren't going to work with me. Okay, I can't force anyone to do anything. 8 weeks, 12 weeks later, whatever, back at me. No insulin sensitivity, lots of body fat, depressed, they're binge eating, they've developed a borderline eating disorder at this point, they hate bodybuilding, all that stuff. It happens all the time. So people just need to realize that it's no joke. And the harder you push in your prep and the more extreme you have to be at the end, the more out of whack hunger signaling is going to be, and the more out of whack your general hormone environment and your appetite is going to be. Someone that's really, the way to think about it is the further you are away from your natural set point calorically and body fat wise, probably the harder it's going to be to recover. If you're naturally lean and you just get leaner, then it might not be as bad as someone that's naturally not that lean, but they still get peeled. I mean, that person's probably going to have a harder time balancing back out. So I let them know, like, I take it very seriously, and I don't want to say I use scare tactics, but I mean, I definitely drive it home that it is no joke, and they don't want to waste all their time, because it's not just going to go back to dieting again, go back in a deficit again in 8 weeks. It's not going to work, because they basically shot themselves in the foot at that point. So hopefully they take it seriously. They don't always. Some people have to learn the hard way. What do you do to set up a client properly if they come to you around 16, 20 weeks out from a target show and you've never worked with them before? What are the things you ask, look for, and do right off the bat? And have you ever discovered something upon investigation which leads you to terminate the prep? There's a lot of context to this question, so it's hard to answer, but I mean, I'm going to gather as much information as I possibly can, find out obviously the basic stuff, how much cardio you're doing, what are your macros, what do your photos look like, but what was the last 3 months like? Were you in a deficit? Were you in a surplus? Were you gaining weight at this caloric set point? Were you not gaining weight? Have you been stressed? Have you been relaxed? What's your environment like? Was everything leading up to this point? Because just because you've been good for the last 2 weeks getting ready for prep doesn't mean your body's fully restored and ready to go. I need to know all of these things previous to really get an idea. And past experiences, anything like that can help. And even then, sometimes if I'm hesitant, I'll let them know. I said, hey, we can start this, but I can't guarantee that you're gonna respond perfectly right off the bat. I have no idea how you respond other than the information you've given me. I'm going to make my most educated guess, and I'm going to adapt to things as quickly as possible. 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 times, it's okay. Assuming that if I feel comfortable enough at the beginning, I go through with it, then I'm normally good. But again, it's a tough one. And have I ever discovered anything upon investigation lead to terminate the prep? Well, to actually terminate the prep, I can think of maybe a couple instances, that it's actually happened before. And again, I mean, you only know, as a coach, you only know what they tell you. It doesn't mean, even if you ask all the right questions, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get all the information, everything you need. So again, I think the biggest takeaway is you need to find out how has their body been functioning for the last 6 months, 3 months at least, not just what are you doing right now. Let's look at everything leading up to that point, so you have an idea of how things are functioning, how they're responding, what's been happening. That's probably a lot more telling than just what are your macros right now, what is your cardio. Oh, you're eating quite a bit, huh? And you're not doing any cardio? Okay, you should be in a good spot to start prep. Well, they didn't tell you that they just started eating a lot and they were doing an hour and a half of cardio every day beforehand. It's probably extreme, but you get my point. So backtrack. One more. Clients with the most stubborn as fuck legs that are literally on low calories as it is in mega stressful lifestyle, full-time mom and worker or business owner, so stress is forever there. And another case, say may have a low immune system due to some disorder, how would you get their stubborn areas in shape, especially the legs? Well, I mean, there's some issues within there. If there's an immune system issue that could be linked into the stress, I realize that I think being busy doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be stressed. Um, yeah, I mean, there's things that are unavoidable. Again, I'm not a parent, but I own a business. I had two businesses at once before, so I was running one while yeah, I was doing both basically within the same day, and was at one 60, 70 hours a week while running the other one 60, 70, 80 hours a week. They overlapped a lot, obviously, but now, I mean, my point is that busy doesn't necessarily mean stressful if you can receive situations in a way that you can manage the stress, because the stress is a perceived thing. You know what I mean? It's not like this is stress and this is not. No, it's person dependent. I mean, it doesn't have to stress you out, but it might stress you out, not somebody else out, and vice versa. Depends on how you perceive it. You really need to manage the stress. I mean, if you have normally fat distribution, in this regard, it's somewhat genetic and also hormonal. And if you're creating even worse hormonal, stress hormone environment, then yeah, that's not going to help you at all. Um, you could have some lab work done. You could check adrenal hormones. You could check all your sex hormones. For female like this, I would really recommend getting a Dutch test done. Um, Checking estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all the metabolites, 4-point cortisol test and its metabolites, DHEA, DHEAS. They now do neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and norepinephrine, I believe. So, I mean, you can see everything and really see what your environment's like, because you need to optimize that environment if you want to lose fat, especially in those stubborn areas. And that's going to be even more important for somebody that has this type of lifestyle versus somebody that has a very relaxed lifestyle that maybe just works 9 to 5, financially stable, doesn't really have any worries, everything's hunky-dory. So I would suggest checking that out. And that's going to make it a lot easier to see what's going on the inside, so you know how you're actually going to respond to things. And then you might be able to use something like yohimbine HCl for fatty acid mobilization in those stubborn areas. Those receptors, the alpha receptors, tend to sit in those stubborn areas, might help. And then keep getting leaner. I don't know how lean your whole body is, like in general, but if an area is holding fat, I mean, if you just keep getting leaner, then that area is going to have to let go of fat eventually. With that said, I mean, I've seen some people that are just way, 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 way off balance. It'd have to be one part of their body would basically just shrivel up to nothing before their legs came in, or whatever, vice versa. So you really have to optimize the entire environment to get it to work. And then if it's something like cellulite, it's a whole different animal. I can't really go into the whole cellulite thing here because that's a different topic where I'm already over 20 minutes. But cellulite is, I think it's kind of misunderstood as far as what it actually is and whether you can get rid of it or not. But yeah, lots of things there you can work on. I would get started on those. Look up the Dutch tests. If you need a link, ask for it in the comments. I will link it. And that is pretty much it, guys. I will, let's see. Yep, that is all for the week. Coming up 24 minutes. All right. I will talk to you guys next time.